Our dear friend Douglas Rutherford left this mortal world on May 19th, 2020, during the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic. This video highlights his memorial celebration held September 19th, 2021, filled with songs, photos, stories, prayers, and his friends in more than 40 Zoom locations. Douglas became a Baha'i in the 1970s in Washington, D.C. He lived in Alexandria, Virginia for some years and relocated to Mount Rainier, Maryland after marrying Caroline Jeza in 2010. They moved to Owings Mills in 2015 in the Baltimore County West Baha'i community. Douglas is fondly remembered for his gentle demeanor, his love for Baha'i music, and for his service to the Bahá'í Chorale. He is survived by his dear wife of 10 years, Caroline Jeza.
Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Ali'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Ali'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Ali'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Ali'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya
I'm Lisa Jordan Green, and I am welcoming you on behalf of the Spiritual Assembly of Baltimore County West. And we're here today to celebrate the life of Douglas Rutherford. We have a very beautiful program scheduled for you. We have some readings, we have some prayers, we have a number of music selections, and we will also have an hour of open mic where people can share stories, music, anything that they would like to share for this occasion. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, oh thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions, verily I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned
He is God, exalted is He, the Lord of loving kindness and bounty. Glory be unto Thee, Thou, O my God, the Lord omnipotent. I testify to Thine omnipotence and Thy might, Thy sovereignty and Thy loving kindness, Thy grace and Thy power, the oneness of Thy being and the unity of Thine essence, Thy sanctity and exaltation above the world of being and all that is therein. O my God, Thou seest me detached from all save Thee, holding fast unto Thee and turning unto the ocean of Thy bounty, to the heaven of Thy favor, to the day star of Thy grace. Lord, I bear witness that in Thy servant Thou hast reposed Thy trust, and that is the Spirit wherewith Thou hast given life to the world. I ask of Thee, by the splendor of the orb of Thy revelation, mercifully to accept from him that which he hath achieved in Thy days. Grant then that he may be invested with the glory of Thy good pleasure, and adorned with Thine acceptance. O my Lord, I myself and all created things bear witness unto Thy might, and I pray Thee not to turn away from Thyself this Spirit that hath ascended unto Thee, unto Thy heavenly place, Thine exalted paradise, and Thy retreats of nearness, O Thou who art the Lord of all men. Grant then, O my God, that Thy servant may consort with Thy chosen ones, Thy saints and Thy messengers in heavenly places that the pen cannot tell, nor the tongue recount. O my Lord, the poor one hath verily hastened unto the kingdom of Thy wealth, the stranger unto his home within Thy precincts, he that is sore athirst to the heavenly river of Thy bounty. Deprive him not, O Lord, from his share of the banquet of Thy grace, and from the favor of Thy bounty. Thou art in truth the Almighty, the gracious, the all-bountiful. O my God, Thy trust hath been returned unto Thee. It behooveth Thy grace and Thy bounty that have compassed Thy dominions on earth and in heaven, to vouchsafe unto Thy newly welcomed one Thy gifts and Thy bestowals, and the fruits of the tree of Thy grace. Powerful art Thou to do as Thou willest. There is none other God but Thee, the gracious, the most bountiful, the compassionate, the bestower, the pardoner, the precious, the all-knowing. I testify, O my Lord, that Thou hast enjoined upon men to honor their guest, and he that hath ascended unto Thee hath verily reached Thee, and attained Thy presence. Deal with him then according to Thy grace and bounty. By Thy glory, I know of a certainty that Thou wilt not withhold Thyself from that which Thou hast commanded Thy servants, nor wilt Thou deprive him that hath clung to the cord of Thy bounty, and hath ascended to the dayspring of Thy wealth. There is none other God but Thee, the one, the single, the powerful, the omniscient, the bountiful. Baha'u'llah.
O my God, verily Thy servant, humble before the majesty of Thy divine supremacy, lowly at the door of Thy oneness, hath believed in Thee and in Thy verses, hath testified to Thy word, hath been enkindled with the fire of Thy love, hath been immersed in the depths of the ocean of Thy knowledge, hath been attracted by Thy breezes, hath relied upon Thee, hath turned his face unto Thee, hath offered his supplications to Thee, and hath been assured of Thy pardon and forgiveness. He hath abandoned this mortal life, and hath flown to the kingdom of immortality, yearning for the favor of meeting Thee. O Lord, glorify his station, shelter him under the pavilion of Thy supreme mercy, cause him to enter Thy glorious paradise, and perpetuate his existence in thine exalted rose garden, that he may plunge into the sea of light in the world of mysteries. Verily, thou art the generous, the powerful, the forgiver, and the bestower.
I'd like to welcome everybody of my friends from far and wide, all the way from Kenya, New Hampshire, Cleveland, South Carolina. Welcome. I don't see all your faces, but I know you're there and I love you all. And I'm happy that we are here to share this program today. I have a very short history of my beloved husband. He used to say that he is as American can be. He was born and raised a few meters from the White House in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. So that makes him very American. And he used to say that our wedding was not a wedding between me and him, but it was a wedding of two continents, which would bring it together, help bring together the oneness of humanity. He would have loved to have gone to Kenya. He tried very much, but his health wouldn't allow him. So he was born on September 18th, 1952, to two wonderful people, Viola Jackson and John Rutherford Sr. And he went to Dunn High School, and from there he went to Clark's University in Massachusetts, but he didn't finish his bachelor's there. He came back to DC and he finished his bachelor's in Howard University, Washington, DC. And he worked with various places. One of them was property management. And then he worked with the University of, what is that university? I've forgotten the name, where he worked as a telephone operator, and his mind was so cute that he memorized the whole of that directory of telephone numbers. He had what we call photographic memory, that you can look at page and memorize it. And then from there, that job ended because of, after being there for, I don't know how many years, many years, the job ended because there was very, very high discrimination. So there was this rankers of discrimination that people they organized themselves, the blacks, and during that time, the job ended. And then he worked various other jobs. And at long last, he went to work for Walmart. It was in Walmart while working there that he fell out of a ladder. Yes. And he woke up in the hospital and they told him that he had a stroke. Did the fall cause the stroke, or did the stroke cause the fall? That was never resolved. And then we got married, and then I'll speak later about his illness and how he passed away. But here I have a few stories. One of them that he's told me, or I had it, either way, that when he was a little baby, he was one of those unique little children. Sometimes people woke up to find Douglas, who was not school age yet. He had not entered kindergarten or anything, but he could read. This child could read. People didn't know how he learned it. So I asked him, how did you learn how to read? He said, I don't know. I just knew how to do it. And because he could read, this little baby could read, people would bring everything. You know, they picked up a piece of paper, give it to him, and he would read it. Long before he went to school. That was one of his special things, I think. And then when he was in high school, he was good in math and science. And he used to tell me stories about other students who used to come to his house for him to try to help him with his homework. Then his mom died when he was really little. I think maybe he was 10 or so. His mother died. And that really deeply affected his life. When I married him, when I got married to him, he was over 50 years old. And every time he spoke about his mother, tears would run down his face. He's been crying his mother for over 50 years. So that is my beautiful, wonderful husband, Douglas. One of his highlights in his life was he became a conductor for the district DC Bahá'í Chorale for a short time. I don't know how many months, but he really loved that. And then at a certain time, also another his highlights, he went out on a tour with the chorale to the Holy Land and other areas in Europe. And those are the fond memories, was to remember that time that he was a conductor. He served, he sang in the chorale for many, many years too. So I'll stop there. I'll come back later and tell you about how he died. Thank you.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? Baha'u'llah Hidden Words, number 32.
Abdu'l-Baha said, "Tonight I will speak of the evolution or progress of the spirit. Absolute repose does not exist in nature. All things either make progress or lose ground. Everything moves forward or backward. Nothing is without motion. From his birth, a man progresses physically until he reaches maturity. Then, having arrived at the prime of his life, he begins to decline. The strength and powers of his body decrease, and he gradually arrives at the hour of death. Likewise, a plant progresses from the seed to maturity, then its life begins to lessen until it fades and dies. A bird soars to a certain height, and having reached the highest possible point in its flight, begins its descent to earth. Thus, it is evident that movement is essential to all existence. All material things progress to a certain point, then begin to decline. This is the law which governs the whole physical creation. Now let us consider the soul. We have seen that movement is essential to existence. Nothing that has life is without motion. All creation, whether of the mineral, vegetable, or animal kingdom, is compelled to obey the law of motion. It must either ascend or descend. But with the human soul, there is no decline. Its only movement is towards perfection. Growth and progress alone constitute the motion of the soul.
Divine perfection is infinite. Therefore, the progress of the soul is also infinite. From the very birth of a human being, the soul progresses, and the intellect grows and knowledge increases. When the body dies, the soul lives on. All the differing degrees of created physical beings are limited, but the soul is limitless. In all religions, the belief exists that the soul survives the death of the body. Intercessions are sent up for the beloved dead. Prayers are said for their progress and for the forgiveness of their sins. If the soul perished with the body, all this would have no meaning. Further, if it were not possible for the soul to advance towards perfection after it had been released from the body, of what avail are all these loving prayers of devotion? We read in the sacred writings that all good works are found again. Now, if the soul did not survive, this also would mean nothing. The very fact that our spiritual instinct, surely never given in vain, prompts us to pray for the welfare of those, our loved ones, who have passed out of the material world, does it not bear witness to the continuance of their existence? In the world of the spirit, there is no retrogression. The world of morality is a world of contradictions, of opposites. Motion being compulsory, everything must go forward or retreat. In the realm of spirit, there is no retreat possible. All movement is bound to be towards a perfect state. Progress is the expression of spirit in the world of matter. The intelligence of man, his reasoning powers, his knowledge, his scientific achievements, all these beings manifestations of the spirit, partake of the inevitable law of spiritual progress and are therefore of necessity immortal. My hope for you is that you will progress in the world of spirit as well as in the world of matter, that your intelligence will develop, your knowledge will augment, and your understanding be widened. You must ever press forward, never standing still. Avoid stagnation, the first step to a backward movement, to decay. The whole physical creation is perishable. These material bodies are composed of atoms. When these atoms begin to separate, decomposition sets in. Then comes what we call death. This composition of atoms, which constitutes the body or mortal element of any created being, is temporary. When the power of attraction, which holds these atoms together, is withdrawn, the body as such ceases to exist. With the soul, it is different. The soul is not a combination of elements. It is not composed of many atoms. It is of one indivisible substance and therefore eternal. It is entirely out of the order of the physical creation. It is immortal. Scientific philosophy has demonstrated that a simple element, simple meaning not composed, is indestructible, eternal. The soul, not being a composition of elements, is, in character, as a simple element, and therefore cannot cease to exist. The soul, being of that one individual substance, can suffer neither disintegration nor destruction. Therefore, there is no reason for its coming to an end. All things living show signs of their existence, and it follows that these signs could not of themselves exist if that which they express or to which they testify had no being. A thing which does not exist can, of course, give no sign of its existence. The manifold signs of the existence of the Spirit are ever before us.
The traces of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, the influence of his divine teaching is present with us today and is everlasting. A non-existent thing, it is agreed, cannot be seen by signs. In order to write, a man must exist. One who does not exist cannot write. Writing is in itself a sign of the writer's soul and intelligence. The sacred writings, with the ever same teaching, prove the continuity of the Spirit. Consider the aim of creation. It is possible that all is created to evolve and develop through countless ages with this small goal in view. A few years of a man's life on earth, is it not unthinkable that this should be the final aim of existence? The mineral evolves till it is absorbed in the life of the plant. The plant progresses till finally it loses its life in that of the animal. The animal, in its turn, forming part of the food of man, is absorbed into human life. Thus, man is shown to be the sum of all creation, the superior of all created beings, the goal to which countless ages of existence have progressed. At the best, man spends 80 years and 10 in this world, a short time indeed. Does a man cease to exist when he leaves the body? If his life comes to an end, then all the previous evolution is useless, all has been for nothing? Can one imagine that creation has no greater aim than this? The soul is eternal, immortal. Materialists say, where is the soul? What is it? We cannot see it, neither can we touch it. This is how we must answer them. However much the mineral may progress, it cannot comprehend the vegetable world. Now, that lack of comprehension does not prove the non-existence of the plant. To however great a degree the plant may have evolved, it is unable to understand the animal world. This ignorance is no proof that the animal does not exist. The animal, be he never so highly developed, cannot imagine the intelligence of man, neither can he realize the nature of his soul. But again, this does not prove that man is without intellect or without soul. It only demonstrates this, that one form of existence is incapable of comprehending a form superior to itself. This flower may be unconscious of such a being as man, but the fact of its ignorance does not prevent the existence of humanity. In the same way, if materialists do not believe in the existence of the soul, their unbelief does not prove that there is no such realm as the world of spirit. The very existence of man's intelligence proves his immortality. Moreover, darkness proves the presence of light, for without light, there would be no shadow. Poverty proves the existence of riches. For without riches, how could we measure poverty? Ignorance proves that knowledge exists, for without knowledge, how could there be ignorance? Therefore, the idea of mortality presupposes the existence of immortality. For if there were no life eternal, there would be no way of measuring the life of this world.
If the spirit were not immortal, how could the manifestations of God endure such terrible trials? Why did Jesus suffer the fearful death on the cross? Why did Muhammad bear persecutions? Why did the Bab make the supreme sacrifice, and why did Baha'u'llah pass the years of his life in prison? Why should all this suffering have been, if not to prove the everlasting life of the Spirit? Christ suffered. He accepted all his trials because of the immortality of his spirit. If a man reflects, he will understand the spiritual significance of the law of progress, how all moves from the inferior to the superior degree. It is only a man without intelligence who, after considering these things, can imagine that the great scheme of creation should suddenly cease to progress, that evolution should come to such an inadequate end. Materialists who reason in this way and contend that we are unable to see the world of spirit or to perceive the blessings of God are surely like the animals who have no understanding. Having eyes, they see not. Ears they have, but do not hear. And this lack of sight and hearing is a proof of nothing but their own inferiority, of whom we read in the Quran, they are men who are blind and deaf to the Spirit. They do not use that great gift of God, the power of understanding, by which they might see with the eyes of the Spirit, hear with spiritual ears, and also comprehend with the divinely enlightened heart. The inability of the materialistic mind to grasp the idea of the life eternal is no proof of the non-existence of that life. The comprehension of that other life depends on our spiritual birth. My prayer for you is that your spiritual faculties and aspirations may daily increase, and that you will never allow the material senses to veil from your eyes the glories of the heavenly illumination. Abdul Baha.
Our friend Douglas served on the DC Chorale for a number of years, and we are blessed to have some of the friends with us who served with Douglas. And we have a few musical selections. The first one will be by Roya.
Yeah, greetings, everyone. Yes, I definitely did a lot of singing with Douglas over the years as part of the Metropolitan Washington Bahá'í Chorale. He also was able to join a bunch of us in traveling to Europe on the first and so far only European gospel tour, Baha'i Gospel Tour of Europe. It was always a pleasure to sing with him because he was such a lively person and he loved to sing with just every ounce of spirit and happiness that he could, regardless of who the audience was. So to honor Douglas, I thought I would just sing a prayer by the Bab. First I'll say it in English and then I will sing it in German. Say, God sufficeth all things above all things, and nothing in the heavens or in the earth but God sufficeth. Verily, he is in himself the knower, the sustainer, the omnipotent. Sprich Gott, schenkt Genüge in allen Dingen und über die Dinge hinaus. Gott schenkt Genüge in allen Dingen und über die Dinge hinaus. Und nichts auf Erden und in den Himmeln außer Gott kann Genüge geben. Nichts auf Erden und in den Himmeln außer Gott kann Genüge geben. Wahrlich, ist in sich selbst der Wissende, der Allerhalte, der Allmächtige. Thank you for including me.
And so thank you, Caroline and everyone for planning this memorial. I knew Douglas probably shortly after I moved to the DC area back in the late 80s. And he was always a great bounty, very positive, a big man, big, strong, you know, robust man, as they would say in some of the old literature, and very kind spirit. And I know we had worked together years ago planning what we had was called the Pupil of the Eye conference here in Washington, D.C. It sort of, that took place probably back in the late 90s or so, very well attended program. We had a wonderful time, met in his home over in the historic Shaw neighborhood long before all the redevelopment took place in that area. And it was just a bounty to be there and to know him. And thank you for allowing me to have these brief reflections.
Next up is Ronnie Epps.
Hello, everyone. Yes, well, I guess we can go back and say that Douglas Emerson Rutherford, I've known all of my life. From the time I moved into the neighborhood that we grew up in when I was 1 year old. So I can only imagine that my mother and his mother had us both outside because we're only 6 weeks apart, him being the oldest, and walking us up and down the street. So I've known him all of my life. I've known him longer than anyone except my immediate family. And so when I think back on Doug, is just like Caroline mentioned earlier, as my brothers tell me, he was reading when he was 2 years old. So if he was outside, people would walk up, picking up papers off the street and say, watch this child read, and hand him over to him. I'll be standing there right there with him, and they ignoring me, but Doug had to read to everybody coming up and down that street, the word that passed around. So when I was about 4 years old, my mother said, I came to her and said, if Douglas can read, why can't I read? So from that point on, she said every night she had to sit there with me to teach me how to read. I didn't know that I should be reading at 4 years old, but if Doug could do it, I could do it. So we were always together. So one story I always remember is when we were in second grade, we were standing around when we had idle time. He was trying to teach us how to do the multiplication tables. Now, just remember, second grade, most of us hardly knew how to add, much less multiply. But he would go through that whole multiplication tables, and we're guessing, and Doug's shaking his head, giving us no, 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 until we got the right answer. So once again, it was something else that if Doug knew how to do multiplication tables, I should know how to do multiplication tables. And once again, so I always think of Douglas as being one of my big sense of inspiration as far as wanting to gain knowledge, because if Doug could do it, I could do it. And in return, I was kind of like his protector. So when we were in about the third grade, I think the teacher came to his mother and told him that and told my mother that they had to separate us because Doug was too dependent on him and I was too dependent on Doug. So they had to separate us for about a couple of years just so we can establish our own independence, I guess you can say. But we've stayed in touch over the years, no matter what conditions, because one of the closest things, when he lost his mother, and I can always remember that Saturday morning, the first house he came to after they contacted his aunt was to come and get my mother to assist him. And I always remember that. I remember that Saturday morning like it was yesterday. But from that point on, we've always stayed in touch. If I couldn't get in touch with Doug, he always contacted my mother to let me know when he had moved to, whether it was, I think he lived up in upper southeast for a minute, then he was back into the Shaw area, then he moved out to Alexandria, but there was always a way that we always stayed in touch. So Doug, one year after I moved out here, I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, by the way. He took a 3-day train ride just to visit me, and then 3-day train ride back. So that's how connected we have been all my life. And I'm so thankful. I called him the April before he passed, that month before he passed, just to check on him because I knew he had gone through so many physical illnesses over the years. But I had to contact him. He asked me why was I calling. This is when COVID was just starting. But you know, here's a guy I always looked up to and always wanted to. I guess you say I was his helping hand. You know, there were some little things about Doug that he just couldn't do, but I was always the one who did those things when he was the mathematician and expert reader and, as I say, photographic memory. And I was the one that just to help him and protect him. And because my mother said I used to tie his shoes. He could do everything else, but he couldn't tie his shoes. But so I was there to tie his shoes. So over the years, but that's how I felt, you know, just when COVID hit and I contacted him. And then when I found out that August that he had passed away, that just shook me to my core, I guess you can say. But Douglas has been my long time, and I'm sorry if I went over 4 minutes, but he's just such a part of my life from the time, like I said, from the time I can remember to now. And I think about him every year. We always contact each other on our birthdays and always got the chance to call him the old man because he was 6 weeks before I was going to turn 69. So it would have been the same way. And we had always talked about when we got to at least 70 or 75, how much we would just go back and forth on that. But he's a person I'm probably going to miss dearly. And, you know, as Caroline know, I came by and visit. I came by for his birthday back on 2018 for his birthday. And I came specifically just for that. I know he was turning 66 at the time, but at the same time, it was the first time I had a chance to get home since my mother had passed back in 2013. So to come back and see him and, you know, spend the day with him. And you remember how it was that day, and we just laughed and took pictures, and something I'll never forget. I still have a picture today of us together and Caroline, and how great a day it was that day we spent on his birthday. So he's going to be one that I would definitely miss, but Douglas Emerson Rutherford will always be a part of my life until the day I pass. Thank you for allowing me that time.
We have the pleasure of having Mr. Van Gilmer with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. When Caroline contacted me yesterday and asked if I would sing, I said, sure, I will sing. But I already had something on my schedule. It's an important meeting that I just ran out of. They don't know where I went. But I knew I had to be here. And I knew I had to be here because Doug is a very special person. He was a very special person. He is a very special person. He sang with the DC Chorale from the beginning. He was always there. If I couldn't count on anybody else, I could count on Doug. He also went with us to other countries. So he was dedicated to all the things that seemed good. And so there's just no way that I couldn't come here and just say how much I appreciated Doug. And, you know, we don't often know people closely. We think we do. And here was Doug, he was everywhere. If there was a supporter of good, there was Doug, if he could. And he would even do it when he might not have been feeling all that well. So I do want to sing a song for him. I want to sing a song for him. I hope my music is set up so that I can do this. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya My love to all of you.
Let me welcome everybody once again, and particularly welcome our guest of honor, Douglas Rutherford. You are not with us physically, but I know you are watching over us today. I know you are here with us. I know that it's beautiful in heaven, but I hope you took a little time to just come and hover around us today. So welcome, Douglas. This is for you, sweetheart. I love you always. And I salute you, Douglas. I salute you for all the sufferings and all that you went through before you gave up and you went to the Baha'i kingdom. That year, 2019, was a very, very heavy year. 2019 all the way to about March, just before he went to the hospital the last time. He had numerous bouts of pneumonia that year, that time. His heart was failing, would fill up with fluids, would have edema, shortness of breath, and would go to the hospital. They would drain him and would come back home. And also something that was happening was he kept on falling down because he couldn't accept the fact that he can no longer, move. Kept on falling down, and he's on his knees, and he would be really painful, excruciating, and he would have to stay there until the 911 would come and try to get him up and put him back in the chair. So that particular time, we were very careful. He had just come back from a rehab. He was there for 1 month. And because he fell just before Christmas, and his wish for the new year was that he could wake up, he could walk again. So he went to this rehab, and he could walk again. So he came home with the nurses and physical therapists that were coming to see him. So when the corona came, we were going to be very, very careful, no going out, no nothing. So we were at home, and then one day he said, when he was very active, very well, he said, I feel like I'm going to die. And I remember it was in the evening, and I thought I'm going to go to work. And he says he feels he's going to die. I can't leave him here and then come back in the morning and find him dead. My niece was with me at that time. And so I asked him if he wanted to go to the hospital. And he said, yes. So I called the ambulance man came, and they, what they do, they check you out. And they asked him, why do you want to go to the hospital? The hospital is a war zone. There's corona there. Are you sure you want to go to the hospital? He said, yeah, I want to go to the hospital. And I told him, Douglas, you sure you want to go there? Because, there is corona up there. Anyway, he went to go to the hospital, even though these people, the first responders, really didn't want to take him. But he wanted to go. So reluctantly, they took him. And he went there, and he came back a couple of days later. But when he came back, he was visibly weak. He could still get up and walk, go to the fridge and get something, but you can see that he has lost some energy. Then he fell. He fell frequently, like 3 times within a very short time. He fell. He fell in the kitchen one time. Then he fell in the bathroom. Then he couldn't get up anymore. You had to give him food and everything where he is, because he couldn't get up to go to anywhere. He had a commode next to him and things like that. So then one day, I remember I came back from work, and as I came in, the nurse was coming in, and the nurse evaluated him, and he had a wound. I think he had a wound. He dressed it. And then Douglas said, I can't breathe. And we looked at each other because there was nothing wrong with him. I said, what do you mean you can't breathe? The nurse checked his lungs, everything, says, you are okay. You don't have no crackles, no wheezing, no nothing. Why are you saying you can't breathe? But he insisted I can't breathe. We did everything. So then I told the nurse, you know what? I had stopped checking his sugar because he was dismissed by his endocrinologist because his sugar was okay. So maybe I should check his sugar to see that this is the only thing we had to check. And I did not have the strips because the doctor had done it. It's another story. But so I said, let me run, get the strips and come and check his sugar. I went to the pharmacy to get the strips. When I came back, he had called 911. And he's telling these people, I can't breathe. I can't breathe, but you are talking okay. They also checked him. They even had a meter. They checked the sugar was right. The sugar was okay. Blood pressure was okay. Everything was okay. But he said, I can't breathe. They said, you want some oxygen? They put oxygen on him. And he said, okay, now I can breathe. But he was not showing any shortness of breath. He was not like gasping for breath. He was not, because, he has had pneumonia many, many times. So I know when he loses he gets shortness of breath. But there was no shortness of breath this time. But he insisted he couldn't breathe. So he went away to the hospital. Problem was that the hospital was shut down because of COVID. You couldn't visit him. So I could not go visit him. The next day, they called me to tell me that he's been discharged home. They're going to send him home on a wheelchair van. Are you home to open the door? So I said, okay, I'm home to open the door, but he usually carries his keys on his neck. But anyway, I'm home. So he says, okay, then he's coming. When we get the transport ready, we'll call you. Then I said, did you check? Did you test him for COVID? They said, no, we didn't test him for COVID. I said, since he's been there 2 times, this is the second time to go to the hospital, and you are telling me that the hospital is full of COVID, please check him to rule out COVID, because I'm a private care nurse. I go to people's homes. I don't want to carry them anything with me. So rule out that he has no COVID, please. So they said, okay, then we'll check him. So then they, I called them again the next day. They said, oh, yeah, we checked him. He's okay, he's coming home. I said, okay, then let him come home. Nothing happened. I called later that day and I said he was supposed to come home. When is he coming home? And the nurse says, oh, I just came in, let me check. She went and checked and said, oh, I see that he was tested with COVID and the thing was inconclusive. I said, what do you mean inconclusive? You said it was negative. He says, let me check again. Of course, they go forever. Then you call back again. They said, oh, they have to repeat the test. So they repeated the test. And then they said, oh, he is positive. Okay, so what are you going to do then? He's positive, but he doesn't have no symptoms. He's coming home, so prepare to quarantine with him, because he's positive, you cannot send him to rehab. He has to come home. So just because he can't do anything, prepare to quarantine with him. So I spent that day going to the shops, buying everything, knowing that I'm going to be inside the house for 2 weeks, quarantine with him. I came back exhausted from all that shopping. I fell asleep. I woke up, it was 12 of midnight. I called the hospital, where is he? He's not yet come, my husband is supposed to come. He said, oh no, your husband is, his situation changed. He has I said, what do you mean? Can I speak to him? They said he can't talk. Why? Because he's got they put the ventilator in him. I said, why did you put the ventilator on him? I am the attorney, the power of attorney. You did not even ask me, and you went out. Why did you do that? They said, well, the doctor was here. They said, oh, no, when I came in, the doctor had ordered it, when, all that stuff. So now I can't talk to him, and I can't go to the hospital, and he's got a ventilator, and I don't know why, because he was supposed to be discharged home. Luckily, I have a Kenyan sister working in this hospital. I called her, are you going to work today? When you go to work, please ask, even if you're not assigned to that unit, ask your brother-in-law is there. I told her the story. I'm trying to speak fast. So anyway, she said, oh, you are lucky because I'm going to work tonight. I'm working tonight, a night shift, and I'm assigned the COVID ward. I said, good. So go check out and call me in the morning, because I'm going to work too. So later on that it was the next day I went to work. She said, I really don't understand what's happening, but they told me that Douglas was on cannula, nostril cannula, and all of a sudden she's told them, I need something more than this. This is not enough. This nostril cannula is hurting my nostrils. I don't want this. Give me something else. And they didn't have anything else, but he kept on giving me something else. And at the same time, when they moved the cannula, the oxygen started going down. So they said the only thing we can give you, because you tested whatever positive, is the ventilator. And they put the ventilator on him. And this nurse says, we don't know why. Somebody who is talking and was on cannula from there to ventilator, especially when he had already written discharge home. I don't understand why, but the doctor was responsible, was not there. Everybody was saying, we don't know, it was ordered, you know. So now what do? I can't go to see him. He's got this thing in him, so I can no longer speak. And it was a big mess. I called the doctor and said, I want my husband on chloroquine now, hydrochloroquine now. They said, okay, we'll see about it. They came back to me and said, there is no chloroquine available in the hospital. I said, get it, whatever it is, I'll go buy it and bring it and you give it to him. Then they said, no, your husband does not qualify for chloroquine. I said, what do you mean? There has to be something that you can do. They said, what you can do is there is a doctor goes around to inject those live, you know, the thing they were taking, the syrup they were taking from others. Yes. So antibodies. So we shall see when the doctor is coming in tomorrow, we shall see, he will evaluate and see if your husband qualifies for that, then that's what he'll get. But otherwise there is no quarantine in this hospital. I doubt that there's any hydrochloroquine anywhere else. The doctor came. When the doctor came, I didn't speak to the doctor, but the report was that my husband did not qualify for the antibody infusion. In the meantime, Douglas had pulled off this thing 2 times. At the first, they did not pay attention. The second time, they looked at it properly and found it was too long. It was too long for him. So it was irritating his throat. Anyway, they managed to take it off for a little bit, and I spoke to him. And I said, what's happening, Douglas? You were supposed to come home. He said, oh, things are not so good. What happened? He said, I don't know, but I'm not feeling that good. Those were the last words I heard from him. They put the thing back on him, and I did not hear from my husband anymore, because I said, I'm a nurse. I can come there and gear up and see my husband, because I think I know what's happening to him. You can't come. The office is, the hospital is locked up. And then, okay, can I speak to the doctor? Wait, we'll tell the doctor to talk to you. I used to stay at the dining table like this on the phone day and night until when the day he passed away, I almost collapsed myself and died too, because I was exhausted. I didn't eat, I didn't move. It was horrendous. So anyway, he passed away. And then they put there his diagnosis as COVID. 100% sure it was not COVID, it was pneumonia and something else. But anyway, during that time, a lot of people, a lot of blacks were killed because of COVID. And some of it was not even COVID. So we really don't know. But that was what happened. In short, a long story short, that's what happened. And that's how I lost my husband. And I'm grateful for today, because the day that he passed away, I was almost myself. I thought I was going to die. When I went to that funeral home, and they explained to me that you have this burial plot and it is two, one can be buried in top with the other. I said, how did you know I was going to die too and be buried with him? But that's how my husband went. Thank you so much. Any questions? Oh, this is Douglas in high school. You can see he kept his smile throughout. This is the day of his wedding. Now in this picture, we have Douglas. This is Douglas. This is a brother. In between is their father, John Rutherford Sr. And on this one here with his bride is John Rutherford Jr. And Douglas is on the other side. Ron, you sent us that picture, remember?
Yes, I remember.
Oh, this was our wedding day when we got married this happened in the Baha'i Center, Washington, D.C. That's my beautiful daughter there, Lillian, trying to arrange. I was wearing this thing that wouldn't stay on my head, trying to arrange. And there was Douglas. Do you see you notice the difference in height? I'm all barely at his shoulder.
How tall was he?
He was 60 feet 3 inches.
Wow.
And I'm 2 feet, I'm 5'2".
Wow.
So 5'2" and 3. He was like 11 feet taller than me. This is him on the same day in his glory, smiling and be very happy. This is the same day. These are friends of mine. My sister Mariam, there, Mariam Sheh on the very left. My Tanzanian daughter Eunice, and then Douglas. That little boy he's holding was one of my patients. The little boys I used to take care of. And then the little one is Eunice's baby. He's now grown up. And then there is Caroline there. You can still see a belly on his shoulders. Then another friend and my daughter there, Lillian, and another friend on the side. It's us again, taking picture. That was a little car. That car was a big problem. Douglas has got long legs and it was always a trip to get into that car.
Yeah, you had my dad. You don't need me. You don't need me. I don't want to say too much.
Yes, we need you.
I don't want to say too much because my father got me. We were texting and he just said, Doug was a really, really sweet guy. And I will say during the years of the chorale before he left the chorale, he was all I knew. I mean, I used to go there when my parents were young, and there was Doug. So one of the fond memories I have about him is him singing "Look at Me." When we would do do different concerts, and he would sing "Look at Me," and it was just beautiful. And he always put his whole heart and soul into it. When times are tough and my soul has lost its fire, I turn to my God, my adored one, my desire. And when the road grows dark and my candle has lost its flame, I turn to my God, and I call his name. My God, my adored one, my King, my desire. What tongue can voice my thanks, voice my thanks to thee, my God, my adored one, my King, my desire. What tongue can voice my thanks? What tongue can voice my thanks? What tongue can voice voice my thanks to thee.
I joined choir with Nushin, my cousin, a long, long, long time ago, even when Emerson Head was conductor. And Douglas was there. And when we were in high school, we started to go to the DC Youth Workshop, which met after the chorale. I noticed that Doug also came. He would show up at the DC Youth Workshop. You know, usually people had some defined role, like driver or coordinator or something, you know, for youth activities and things. He would just come, you know, and dear Van Gilmer said this, that he, you know, he supported anything good, and he came and he would sit with us, he would pray with us, we would study the writings together, we would have crying fests because we were teenagers and, you know, had so much angst and whatnot. And so he was just this patient, non-judgmental, kind, loving, this all-embracing, gentle, I don't know, it was like somewhere you go to where you're safe. And that was Douglas. Like he was just a safe person. And I'm so grateful that he didn't let any fears or, you know, negative thoughts inhibit him from serving in these ways. Because, you know, a lot of people fear young people, and, you know, especially when they're in a group together, to go and support them. He just came and was there for us. And I'll never forget that. And my mom has a memory.
It was a pleasure to know Douglas, and you know, I usually to have them devotion in my house every month and one Saturday, and he was coming from these stairs. When I was going to do surgery, I said, how I will come to these stairs? It's still very hard. And with condition that he had, he was coming up of the stairs, and always he, with his beautiful voice, say for us a prayer. It was in our devotion. He was great. He is a wonderful man. God bless his soul.
Thank you so much. It is such a blessing and an honor to be present for Douglas and for Caroline and for this day. One of the things I wanted to share about Douglas is that I just want to share one quick memory. During times we first started sponsoring the Kwanzaa program at the Washington, D.C. Baha'i Center. And I asked Douglas to do the solo for the unity prayer, because the first principle of Kwanzaa is umoja, which is unity. And he said, I'm not Van Gilmer. I can't do the solo. And I said, yes, you can. And yes, you will. You don't have to be Van Gilmer to do the solo for the song. So it was like one of our very first Kwanzaa programs that we had at the Baha'i Center. And it was just like such a wonderful memory. And this musical offering I'm going to share is not a Baha'i song or prayer, a Baha'i prayer, but it describes him. And I hope I can keep myself composed. Oh, can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. Allah, can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. We have come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, and he's trusting in his holy word. God's never failed us yet. Allah can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. Thank you for the honor. Ashe, and may Douglas continue to soar through the land of the ancestors as he converses with Baha'u'llah and his Lord. Amen.
First off, okay, thank you to everyone who has gone before with their memories of Douglas. Myself, most of my memories of Douglas revolve around two things. One, of course, his time with the Washington Metropolitan Bahá'í Chorale. For a number of years, I was lucky enough to also be a member. Back when Emerson Head was the director and band was himself a member of the chorale. Okay. I miss him as well. It's been too many years. I was also lucky, and here too, it was a blessing to sing with Doug a number of times as a member of the Voices of Baha chorale under Tom Price. I was never lucky enough to go with them on any of their international excursions, but all the times I was with them, with Doug, there in Ohio, and one time I believe in PG County, unforgettable. One final word. I said this once before about another Baha'i I knew at their funeral. Doug, for me, and I hope many more people, you will be remembered with honor and with love.
Several people have sent photos, and we've gathered them from various sources. So I put them all in one place here, but this is the DC Baha'i Chorale, the original version under the direction of Emerson Head, 1976 in the Baha'i House of Worship in Foundation Hall. We rented a bus and went there for the bicentenary of the US. The chorale sang in Foundation Hall on July the 4th, 1976. And after the performance, we went out and watched the fireworks over Lake Michigan. You see Douglas in the back row as a young guy. This is the same group at the same visit on the front steps of the House of Worship in Wilmette. And I've done my best on the right to capture the names of the people that I can recognize, but there are a few that I can't. This picture came to us yesterday from Rob Head, the son of Emerson Head, the director. It's pictured on the left, but you can find Douglas. Again, in the back row, he was taller than everyone else. Voices of Baha tour in Europe. This came from Debbie Hoagland from Croatia this morning. I gave Douglas a halo, yellow halo. It seemed appropriate to point him out.
This was the European Gospel Tour. We had a great time.
This was Tom Price group?
I see Patrick Lundy, Dr. Garrett came with us. No, this was the Gospel Choir tour.
Oh, wow.
So this was our tour through Belgium and England, and I can't remember other countries. I think this was in Rotterdam, actually, in a church in Rotterdam.
This is in PG North, probably at a holy day. Dr. Bushuri in the middle in the back. Jim Sturdivant on the right. Pictures from Caroline this morning.
Cousins. Say it again. That's his cousins over there, this one?
On the right.
Mm-hmm. So it's Douglas me. Those are daughters of his mother's brother.
You have
Here's,
matching outfits. Yeah.
This is in Mount Rainier, Maryland in 2013. I started with a picture of Douglas on the left. So this is Douglas in his usual chair at the dining room table. He's looking across the room at the living room. And this was his usual perch. He was able to go and unlock the door when we knocked on the door, let us in. What was going on in the living room? I picked some pictures of children's classes and junior youth groups that were taking place with Douglas as the ever gracious host. You see Caroline Masloom here running a children's class, Debbie Hoagland running a children's class, Fran Avendano at the time, here's Benafshe with the junior youth group. And whatever has happened since then in PG in a big way, it started in Caroline and Douglas's apartment in Mount Rainier in 2013 because they wanted it to take place in their neighborhood. And Douglas was home all the time. So whenever we needed a place, he was there to open the door and let us in. A few more pictures from Mount Rainier. Virginia Jones' 87th birthday.
Greetings from Davis, California. I was in DC from about 72 until 95. And for the last 10 years or so, I ran the Sunday morning programs with my wife, Sandra, after we got married in 1990. The one consistent over those years was that Douglas would be there to welcome me and smile. And when he welcomed you, you really believed he was happy to see you. It was just a wonderful man. His spirit was huge, even bigger than him. And I wanted, when I heard of this commemoration, I wanted to have the opportunity to come back and greet those few who still remembered me and let them know what a wonderful man he was, even before they knew him. Thank you. Did you want to say something, Sandra?
Well, I didn't know Douglas that long. As Rick said, we were married in 1990 and we left DC in 1995. But who could not remember Douglas and remember his love for the faith and love for the community and his enormous spirit. And that will always be a beautiful memory for me.
My husband Richard and I met Douglas many years ago in the Washington Metropolitan Bahá'í Chorale. Douglas had the most beautiful singing voice. It was just a sweet sound. You could just feel the spirit when he sang. I had special memories of him when we all went to Canada and sang there on a couple of occasions. Douglas was a wonderful person, very highly respected, a very gentle soul. He was very patient and very kind. It was amazing to me how accepting he was of his declining health. He was so loving to his wife, and it was so sweet to see that. Douglas had a very strong spirit, even though his health might have been weak and poor, but his spirit was very strong. And he had one of those terrific smiles that just made you comfortable. Douglas was a kind of person that any family would love to have in his family. He felt like family, and we all loved him very much. I didn't know him as well as some people who've known him for many years, even during his college life. But he was really a person that you would never forget.
We often talk about how smart Doug was all his life, but I've always let people know he had to be the funniest person, especially in our youth. We didn't get a chance to interact much when we got older, but in our youth, he had to be the funniest guy on the block. he's the first person I remember that made me laugh so hard that my stomach hurt. That Doug was always just humorous. He knew every jingle on the television. He could tell you about every show, every movie, and you know, just kind of like recreate that whole scene. That was Doug in my youth. And I still tell people today, he's the smartest and funniest person I've ever known. So that's why I always remember him. And that's why I was always concerned once he, once he was having his health issues, that the humor wasn't there as much. But we always try to bring it out. And all I had to do is go back and remember our days growing up on First and Q Northwest, and just brings a smile to my face even to this day.
I know Caroline for a very long time. One day she told me, Gila, I met a guy and his name is Douglas. That beautiful accent, Kenyan accent. She knows I love that accent. He's wonderful. He has beautiful heart, and we're getting married. So we went to wedding, and I saw Douglas first time, and it was what Caroline described him as a warm heart and big spirit and spiritual, and he has angelic smile in his face and happy and funny and and very socializing with everyone. And I went to him and say, hi Douglas, I'm Caroline's friend, longtime friend. And he said, yeah, I know. She told me about you. I said, what do you think of my friend Caroline? And then he said, Ya Baha'u'llah, she's the greatest gift ever. And I'm lucky man, he said. Caroline, I turned to Caroline and said, Caroline, you are very lucky too. So this is prayer for Douglas. God bless his soul. Oh my God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions, verily I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abounded the physical garment, have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrow, and change the darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold the splendors on the loftiest mount, Abdullah.
Douglas and Caroline only lived in Baltimore County West for 5 years before he passed. I remember when we were having our children's classes, we started a program at the library, and Douglas came with Caroline. Caroline brought him, and I remember being surprised that he came because, he was using the walker and everything. And like Farhana said, he didn't have a defined role, but he came out to support us, and he offered prayers and he sang with his beautiful voice. And I just remember being so touched by that he didn't have to come, but he wanted to be there to support us in our efforts in working with the children. That's one of my favorite memories of Douglas.
He loved children.
Loved the children.
He loved children. And in his time, he used to teach children classes too. And then I didn't know this until I met some of his children classes. I was hoping maybe one of them would be here today. But he loved children. You can't keep him away from children. He loved children. And he didn't use his infirmity to keep him from anything. If there's a way to get there, he'll get there. Yeah. And the other thing I want to is the funny side of him. I remember one time I was coming home and I was feeling tired and whatever, and my husband held me like this. He was tall, so he looked at me. He looks down on me, and he said, "You are sorely vexed." These are words in one of the healing prayers. sorely vexed. And I remember I laughed like a fool that day until I fell down. I don't even know why. But the way he said it, it just made you just laugh. He was a great man, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline and the Assembly, for putting up this memory, because Douglas was a very good friend of mine. I knew him for many, many years from the time that I came to the US and joined the Chorale, which is like 20 years. This gives me closure because all this time, honestly, I could not just accept that Douglas was not there anymore. Douglas was my neighbor in Alexandria, and we sang with him in the chorale. We used to go to the chorale together sometimes. And I remember one time we went to Shenandoah and the choir was singing and Douglas and I drove there. He drove. And when we got to Shenandoah, we both got out of the car and he got out of the car too and left the key in the ignition and then locked the car. So we were just going to perform and then go back. And so I said to Douglas, okay, give me the keys. So I put them in my purse, so that we don't misplace them. And he said, but I thought you had the keys. I said, but you drove. And he was like, oh, so I was here panicking. How are we ever going to get out of here? But to him, it was no big deal. He knew it was going to happen anyway. We'll get out. Eventually, of course, we called AAA and they came and they opened the car. And I thought it was so hilarious that I was so worried about. I was in panic, actually, and he just took it so easy, like everything's going to be all right. That was the kind of man. He didn't speak Swahili, but whenever we had devotionals, which we had weekly at Caroline's house, and we would sing Swahili songs, he always used to join in, and you would think that he understood what he was saying and that he actually spoke Swahili. And I would say he was a really true servant of Baha'u'llah because he always used to just put up that smile even when he was in pain. When we came for devotions, his face would, Caroline would say, oh, Douglas is probably not feeling well. He might not join us. And then you get in and he's the one who opens the door and is smiling. And I'm going to sing a verse of one of Douglas's favorite songs, the Queen of Carmel.
Standing on the mountain, looking across the bay, the Queen of Carmel reigns. She reigns majestically. Cry out, O Zion. Cry out to your Lord. Cry out, O Zion. Circle round in adoration. Circle round your Lord.
My appreciation to everyone who came out today to support this memorial for Douglas and to support Caroline. We really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much for everyone coming out.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Caroline. Bye. Nice to see everybody.
Bye.